Okay, no point in putting it off. Again, I need to just not get in my own head about it. I was playing some Pokemon White off stream. Now back to the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon aura farming, where I just go on various expeditions and adventures and collect them points and rank up until I'm a higher rank than Alakazam and the rest of his trash ass team, El Bozo. Uh, yeah. Did I post that? I did. I did. Okay. Maybe I'll have this up. I think I already talked about that. I might even do some React content. In fact, every now and again I'll have a look at like a couple of the older videos on my channel just to see like what I used to do for thumbnails and the kinds of edits I had, and also to revisit what I thought were some very entertaining bits that I did on stream. You know, like how I proof watch my videos sometimes when I'm editing them. Sometimes I'll go back and revisit something that I feel like was particularly harrowing and kind of remind myself, like, yeah, I did that. Like, you guys might not have been here for this one. Hello, Gotron, welcome back. Some of you might not have been viewers of my channel yet, but I remember back in the day there was a debate between Haas, Infrared Haas, the father of the MAGA communist movement, and what was his name? Trevor Loudon? Something like that. Some libertarian guy, right-wing libertarian, in parentheses fascist, debated with Haas, a MAGA communist, in parentheses Nosbol, on Tim Pool's show. So you had a Nosbol, a Nazi pretending to be a libertarian, and then me, a libertarian communist or libertarian socialist or anarchist, whatever you prefer, reviewing that debate. And the video ended up being about 6 hours long. Sounds like reality. Yeah, that's true. It was you know how in Finding Nemo, Nemo's dad, Marlin, is like, "You mean the swirling vortex of terror?" That's kind of what I felt like. Yay! Let's keep doing our shit. Let's see, Silent Chasm. I think I'm gonna take these from Great Canyon because there's quite a few of them. Why not in Wobbuffet? Hello. Okay. You ever meet some young men and understand why that loneliness is prevalent? No and yes. I don't have a lot of, well, I mean, it's true, I don't have a lot of friends in general. I have a few friends that are, like, my age. I don't hear that much about their social life outside of, like, us interacting with each other because, I don't know. I guess I'm not, me to them might not be the greatest friend, but I do completely understand why loneliness is so pervasive and why it seemed to have taken hold in young men, maybe a little bit before it took hold in young women. The male loneliness crisis as a specifically male phenomenon isn't real, not anymore. But I will for sure acknowledge that I think if you could track the progress of 21st century anti-sociality, it would have caught up to the men first. I mean, people that are so antisocial, you realize why they're lonely. Well, thankfully, I don't interact with that many people who are like that. I make it a point to kind of avoid those people. But, you know, you see enough of them, and, so I do know what you're talking about. Again, I don't interact with them personally, but I do know what has made them like that, more or less. It involves a lot of different things, complicated. Some things that are complicated, some things that are actually quite simple, you know. I understand why it happens. It's just I get that feeling when I meet some people. Yeah, it's gonna be like that. And until systemic, until there are wider phenomena that start changing, that probably is going to get worse. There's going to be like a generation of unfuckable young men and young women to an extent, but like unfuckable young people who are very antisocial because they were raised by the internet and AI and like a world that was hostile to most, if not all, forms of socialization. Particularly in America, this is a problem. You know, you have a contingent of people who are like this in Europe, but it's like over in Europe where there are walkable communities, I could point at them and say, you know what, skill issue, as to like why they don't have any friends. And frequently it's the case that uh uh you know, people in Europe are generally more sociable than people in America by virtue of the kind of urban structures that they are familiar with in juxtaposition to the ones that we're familiar with. That is to say, a lack of any urban structure at all. Makes me really grateful about the situation I grew up in. Yeah, things when you see how dire the situation is around you, you come to appreciate the things that you have, you know. I want to keep that peach berry. Wait, what? Painted loss. Okay, so no item delivery missions this time around. I just realized I was using the speed up button. I didn't really want to be doing that a lot, so I'll stop. I'm actually gonna put away these 2 apples as well. Yeah. Take something? Sure. Pink gummy. Yeah. But you know, what I wanted to mention first and foremost is that politics right now, I mean, politics has kind of always been exhausting, but right now especially it's exhausting. So I don't know how much news coverage I want to do because it's like, oh great, you know, what's the point? The country's going to hell in a handbasket. The Republicans are lighting everything on fire to sate their base. You know, the neoliberal system is going off the rails. And I fucking hate the Democrats because they are not backing up their own as they're receiving death threats. And they are just capitulating every chance they get. Nobody in government cares, you know. How about some fun media coverage? I was actually thinking of that. There was a short video that somebody submitted in the Discord, Cryoraptor submitted in the Discord, that I thought I could do some React content to. And I kind of want, I still want to talk about politics as a concept, but I want my discussion of politics to maybe not be as tied to the news cycle, which means debate React, you know, video React, stuff like that. Even just analyzing dumb Twitter discourse, because I feel like that's more interesting than the current news cycle. Because the current news cycle, in order to be interesting, there has to be like, well, there has to be an interesting explanation that isn't just like, fuck, these people hate us and want to kill all of us, you know? They don't have any friend areas still. I will simply put away my money. Oh, first, let's talk about one thing that I guess you could consider news. I mentioned last time, ABC canceled Jimmy Kimmel's show. They took him off the air. Oh, I see. Uproar Forest. So it was a, we've reached the stage of direct state intervention and suppression of dissenting voices. However, this is mostly being carried out at the behest of the private sector, which kind of lends credence to the point that I made in the video about YouTube and restricted mode, that the new age authoritarian state is being constructed through shareholders and the board of directors. You know, like, the government didn't actually put any direct pressure on ABC to axe Jimmy Kimmel. ABC did that entirely of their own accord. You know, Jimmy Kimmel played the clip of Trump reacting to Charlie Kirk and not giving a shit, which is germane to what I'm about to talk about, maybe in a little bit. And then the FCC chair said, I would like to get Jimmy Kimmel taken off the air. He expressed the desire to do so. He merely verbally said, I don't think Jimmy Kimmel should be on the air, or something like that, in the typical, you know, MAGA sort of framing, escalatory rhetoric, etc. But all he did was say it. You know, there are processes by which the FCC could launch proceedings and whatever. You know, censorship laws are a thing. You know, there are mechanisms by which the state could do this. The state didn't do this. Somebody in the state passively said, man, you know, we should really take Jimmy Kimmel off of the air. And the ABC heard that. ABC heard that. Sinclair Broadcasting heard that and said, quick, let's take Jimmy Kimmel off of the air. Not because there's even any real pressure. There was no pressure to do that. Because in order to take somebody off the air, you have to engage in certain administrative proceedings within the FCC itself, and there's room for corporations to challenge them and take them to court. And the administration would lose because the only thing that Jimmy Kimmel did was air a clip of Donald Trump responding to questions from the press. Literally the most normal thing that you could see on a late night show that does political commentary. Here's a clip of the president responding to a question from the media, and we're going to talk about it, right? And it was ABC that took him off the air. They're like, just proving what I'm saying will incur violence, so don't do that. I feel like you're missing the point. The vanguard of the current wave of authoritarianism that we're seeing here, yes, there are crybullies in the administration. The vanguard of media censorship and authoritarianism is the media itself. The media is self-censoring to try to get mergers approved, to try to get business deals approved, to try to get in the good graces of the administration, because the administration can decide, yes, you get to do this, and this business acquisition here. You'll get to do this. It's all just the Benjamins. That's it. Jimmy Kimmel was pulling in mad viewers, despite the fact that he's a late show host and, like, not that funny. The one time he made actually, like, a decent joke, they pull him off the air. Makes sense? They're part of capital? Yes, exactly. Dictatorship of capital. Alright, I'm not going to go to Uproar Forest right away, though. I'm going to get... See, there's Mount Thunder, there's Mount Freeze. I think I'm going to go to Mount Freeze. Probably. Let's do that. Or not this time, I'm not going to go to Mount Freeze. I'm going to go to Great Canyon. Because there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. Any person got the movie ruined by a child, so they want IDs for movies. What anime was that? Or what video was that? Again, I'm pressing the speed up button. I'm relapsing into my old emulator ways. But yeah, I thought it was relevant to touch on what I think is the real reason that Jimmy Kimmel has been censored, that he's been axed, taken off the air, canceled, whatever. Yes, it is state repression, but it is state repression carried out first and foremost by the private sector. Remember, I think was it ABC or NBC? Here, hold on. Trump ABC lawsuit. Yeah, look. Here, I remember there was a lawsuit that Trump and ABC had. The company sued. No, here. Where was it? Yeah, Trump sued ABC last year for defamation. They were going to win that case. ABC was going to win that case clean. The judge was even like, all indications during that case was that Trump was going to get his ass kicked. ABC preempted the judge's ruling and said, here, let's settle out of court for several million and give an apology personally to Donald Trump. They are preemptively cucking themselves to the administration. The long arm of the state would be on the side of the media companies against state censorship. The courts would be on their side against Donald Trump and his administration. It's the companies themselves that are saying, no, let's, kowtow to the big scary administration that's definitely so intimidating. Yeah, they want to lose, because when they lose, they win. Right? When they quote unquote lose to the advances of an authoritarian state, advances that aren't even being made, by the way. Remember, the thing that preempted ABC, or that prompted ABC to take Jimmy Kimmel off of the air, was just a comment from the FCC chairman. It wasn't some sort of censorship order. It wasn't any sort of official action by the actual office of the FCC. It was just a comment. They hadn't even done anything yet. And ABC was like, oh, that's it. That's our excuse. Let's take Jimmy Kimmel off of the air. Let's try to kiss the toes in the ring of the administration so that they'll let our merger go through. That sounds so weird out of context. Yeah, I mean, like, look, losing a lawsuit against the administration, to them, puts them in the good graces of the administration, which means they're more likely to get better business deals. When they lose, that's more profitable. So that's what's up there. Is it going to work? I don't fucking know. You know? But they did it. In fact, if I had to make a prediction, I would say no, it's not going to work. Trump will fly off the handle at the slightest criticism. So the private sector in America is going to whip itself into a frenzy, going to increasingly absurd lengths to placate the ego of Trump and the maniacs of the administration to a literally impossible degree. They're going to keep capitulating until we have a 1984-esque Ministry of Truth style propaganda network, except the state won't have done any of it. It will have all been the private sector doing that to itself in the hopes that they can get Senpai to notice them in the administration so that they get to, go through with that acquisition of this other company to consume more of the market share to deliver a profit for the shareholders. It is always about the profit for the shareholders. That is the fucking massive driving force that is making everything worse. From censorship in traditional media, to YouTube, to the fucking pharmacy down the street being perpetually understaffed, to like half the shelves being empty at the local box store. It's all just because of speculation and number go up in the shareholder portfolios. That's it. And I'm so goddamn sick of it. So, and I hope a lot of people start getting sick enough of it that, you know, people start to reject the federal, state, and the private sector, you know, to develop those parallel structures of power a la historical revolutions. But now back to Charlie Kirk. As you may have noticed, he did not come up one single time in that whole rant that I did about, you know, Jimmy Kimmel playing a clip of Donald Trump reacting to the news of Charlie Kirk's death. That is the only tangential relevance that Charlie Kirk has to all this. Everything that ensued, nothing to do with Charlie Kirk. And that's being reflected in the current discourse. Nobody fucking cares. Nobody gives a shit about Charlie Kirk because he was a dime a dozen conservative mouthpiece, was not interesting, was not entertaining, boring as fuck, super racist, and I'm willing to bet to the extent that people like listen to him at all, it was part of the like you know, fucking right-wing hypnosis, wave the fucking pendulum. As long as you say certain keywords, they'll keep watching and sort of let their brain turn to mush. Or for a lot of people, it was just their go-to racist, like, second monitor content. You know? When was he shot? He was shot on the 10th? It's been 10 days and now nobody gives a shit. Oop, not Cop Cooper. It's like, it's kind of like a burning of the Reichstag moment. There have been a lot of political events lately that could be counted as such, that you could consider as potential opportunities to do the Reichstag. Yeah, he's kind of a forgettable person, except for the fact that his smile is super fucking creepy, and that his face is too small for his head. Those are the only two things that are, like, really memorable about him. You know? But despite the fact that he was forgettable, he was a prominent right-wing mouthpiece. So, it seems like this might be the, Reichstag fire? Whatever incident this would be analogous to, this is kind of the flashpoint where the state, or in this case, the private sector, acting as a state would, because it's being consolidated into the hands of fewer and fewer oligarchs and like corporatists. This is where the private sector state hybrid, which, you know, some academics may argue they're one and the same. The state exists to serve the interests of the ruling class. So how different are the private sector and the state really? This is where those forces decide, all right, this is our opportunity to clamp down, consolidate further. It's always a game of consolidation for them. Every event is just an excuse for them to try to deepen their connections to institutional power and consolidate further with what power they have, and try to capture more and more of the ownership of society into themselves. Oh yeah, I have to be really careful with Doduo on my team because when he gets down to 25 health, he's going to become terrified and start running away, which is going to get him killed instantly. Also, how many experience points does he need? Only 700. Wow. I'm surprised. You'd think a scared person would stay close to you instead? You would think. You'd think they'd try to, like, hide behind you and just stick close by, but, no. I guess not. Here, Mudkip, why don't you do some of the... Well, you tried. Magnemite, help me out. Thank you. But as I said, that's kind of the only news thing that I wanted to talk about. Power Band. Swap the Ross berry for that. Power Band I could probably sell for some good money. Use that to get friend areas later. If I remember right, the next round of friend areas is much more expensive than the first one. So some of them have like 9,000 price tag or something. It's got to be close to him leveling up. Yeah, okay. Okay. How much does he need now? A little under 3,000. Okay. So it's not like with Zigzagoon where he just leveled up extremely fast. Entering the 5th floor here, maybe, you know, this is a good opportunity to do that React content. Maybe. Here, let me minimize this. I'll go to this. There we go. What is this? I don't know what this video is, but nonetheless, that's not what I meant to do. Not even a little bit. Okay. Imagine being part of your brother's body. Well, there are some people, there's a rare few people that don't have to imagine. Siamese well, I guess they used to be called Siamese twins. I don't fucking know why. Conjoined twins don't have to imagine. Let's pull up the React Andy window. Somebody in the Discord recommended this. I kind of want to see what it is about. You know, what's going on here? Oh, what is happening there? Oh, I guess you can see the scroll wheel on the side. Here, I'm gonna have to actually make this bigger so I can see the edge of what the window I'm trying to redefine there. Oops. Alright, now let's make it smaller again, I guess. Do that. Okay. I assume you don't have any experience with being a combined twin. No, I do not. I do not have experience with living as a conjoined twin. Thank you, and I'm glad that that's the case. I'm glad I don't have that experience personally, because it's difficult. It would be quite difficult. Anyways, this video is called "The Death of Discourse," recommended by somebody in the Discord by Cryoraptor. Apparently this is going to be somewhat disagreeable. Let's see what this guy has to say. Jonathan Pye. Pye tries to make sense of the murder of Charlie Kirk and the blame game that followed. Well, there was quite a blame game after this. Let's see what's up.
Almost a week after footage of Kirk's horrific bloody shooting entering global circulation mere seconds after his death. There was no time to grieve or to take a breath, just instant fury. Just instant war. Too much?
If you look at the stats, there are far more crazy Republicans. Yeah, if you look at a graph of domestic terror incidents committed in the United States between 1990 and today, if you look at the available data of which ideological cohort could be held responsible for all domestic terror between 1990 and today, overwhelmingly, it's the right. It's just the right. 90+% of terror attacks come from the right wing. I think 70% of all terror attacks, or 75% even, being, homegrown, like, American conservatism, far right kind of extremists, right? Like not even any sort of particular flavor that we recognize as other. And then like 15-ish% of domestic terror incidents are committed by Islamist extremists, which is also the far right, but it's like foreign enough that it's counted as a separate category. It's like it's a slightly different pipeline of radicalization. And then something like 5%, actually not even 10%, it was like between 1 and 5% of domestic terror incidents in America were attributable to the left between 1990 and today. And then the other sliver would have been like, I don't know, other like ill-defined political factions or, politically unaffiliated individuals committing acts of terror. Hello, Braylon. Oh, excuse me. But I can't wait for this guy to possibly both sides this, because he sounds quite British, and, if Piers Morgan is of any indication, then the name of the game for them is a small IQ, like small brain, low IQ sort of pearl clutching and like equivocation that suspiciously only ever calls upon the far left to be better and like say you're sorry right now, angry face. Don't want to sound offensive, but I could tell that just from his voice alone. I mean, he has a British accent, right?
Instant war? Maybe you're right, because for a moment the left and the right did seem united. United in purpose, as we all desperately tried to find out who killed him and why, hoping in our heart of hearts to find some connection to our opposition. Well,
that kind of was true. That for a brief period of time, it seemed like everybody was like, okay, who the fuck did that? And obviously there was a current of like, God, I hope it wasn't one of ours. But that was only really on the left that we were saying, we hope it's not one of us, because that would suck. On the right, there was like maybe half a day of who the fuck did this, which very quickly just turned into them already deciding that it was the left's fault, It's like, oh, it was one of you crazy leftists. Yeah, it was a trans person. The bullet was trans. The gun was trans. They were trans or something. So there's a kernel of truth to this, but this could range from like dishonest equivocation to a simplification trying to introduce people to the discourse, or like a surface level understanding of it. So far it's not like super offensive, but
The shooter was far left. No, the shooter was far right. He was dating a trans. He was from a Republican family. Because if I can prove the guy was one of the other guys, I win the argument. I win, hooray! And that's all that matters. Thousands of barely sentient woke zombies saying things like, well, he was pro-gun, so...
All right, barely sentient woke zombies. Very, very, very funny. Okay, yeah, this guy's just Piers Morgan. I gotta say, I actually don't think. I think again, it's kind of like that low IQ framing that it's like it's about winning the argument. No, it's like what was he even saying about that? Something about
barely sentient family. Because if I can prove the guy was one of the other guys, I win the argument.
No, of course he's only levying criticism on the left here. I think we can all pretty easily recognize that the right was eager to sort of pin it on the left by any means necessary. Like there's, that's been a pretty consistent behavior from far right Twitter, i.e. most of it. On the left, it seemed like, to me, this could be a product of the people I follow, but it seemed like there was more of an interest just in finding out, okay, there's two likely possibilities. It became evident pretty clearly that whatever this guy was, he probably wasn't on the left. So then the question was politically unaffiliated or part of the far right, And the reason that such suspicions arose on the left, primarily of this guy being on the far right, is because there's been a pattern of past assassination attempts being far right lunatics. The two assassination attempts, actually three, I believe, of President Trump, coming from either crazed libertarians or crazed neocons or something like that. Whereas, and not to mention the far righter who was disguised as a cop that assassinated actual Democratic lawmakers, succeeded in their assassination, and the right sort of jumped on that gleefully. No such blame game to be found there, as the right was like, yeah, haha, you guys got what was coming to you, basically. Where was I going with that? Let me rewind so I can refresh my thought process.
He was from a Republican family. Because if I can prove the guy was one of the other guys, I win the argument.
Oh, yeah, it wasn't really about the guy being one of the other guys, right? One from the other side. From the left, it was more like, okay, we know that it's probably either far right or unaffiliated, because again, people have we have that chart available of domestic terror incidents in the United States, which this was domestic terror. Charlie Kirk was a civilian. He was a political figure. That constitutes an act of terror. And, the crowd was pretty terrified. I'd say that counts. And like, the left was more so like, some people, yes, obviously jumping to the conclusion based on existing evidence. The right decided that, oh yeah, this must be somebody on the left. And then when the proof came out that he might be on the right, but as of yet, it seems like he's politically unaffiliated. I think I read Kevin Klippenstein's article about that, about the DMs that were leaked. Doesn't seem like he has any well-pronounced political leanings. And the right was like, Lamau, we don't care. Whereas people on the left, there's a fundamentally different, set of brain chemistry instructions happening here, where people on the left are literate and being like, okay, what's what here? If the evidence indicates something, then we're prepared to assume that that's what he was. But so far, there's only been a very limited amount of evidence to suggest what kind of politics this person had, you know, not helped by the fact that the FBI's been fucking constantly shifting the narrative. I feel like I've talked way more than is necessary, but you get the point. This is just equivocation thus far.
I win, hooray! And that... No, he wasn't. Firearms is not the same as, if you disagree with me for having firearms, people being killed by fire. No, he wasn't. I think some people being killed by fire, saying things like, well, he was pro-gun, so he was kind of asking for it.
Well, that's just true, though. Like, not necessarily being pro-gun means you're asking to get shot. But Charlie Kirk specifically had a quote about being pro-gun. He was confronted with the possibility of him or somebody he knows or kids getting shot as a product of the Second Amendment. And he morally defended the Second Amendment on the grounds that even if somebody gets shot, like even if you know, your kids get shot, that's just the price you and I and we have to pay, right? Literally, he had like a Farquaad moment of some of you may die, but that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make. He just didn't realize that he would be the one that got. So yes, he actually was, in that sense, asking for it. Because again, some of you may die, but that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make, right?
No, he wasn't. I think some people...
Also, his career was sort of made by being inflammatory. Every public figure understands, like, to a certain extent, that they are under some kind of political crosshairs, whether it is literal or figurative, for being in public, having political opinions, particularly Charlie Kirk, styling himself the radical provocateur, right? He sought that out. He sought out the kind of vitriol and controversy that would make somebody mad enough to potentially do something like that. Ultimately, I think this is more like small brain take of like just kind of pearl clutching about how like nobody really cared that Charlie Kirk died because he was kind of a nothing person aside from occupying a very powerful space in conservative media. Does that make sense? He's not engaging with the political discussion that exists around a political assassination. He's simply chastising by proxy people who aren't that upset by the fact that Charlie Kirk died.
Being killed by firearms is a reasonable price to pay for having firearms is not the same as, if you disagree with me, feel free to put a bullet in me.
No, look, obviously that's true, but that's what I said. Like, it wasn't just like Charlie Kirk being pro-gun. He explicitly acknowledged some of you may die, but that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make. In making a statement like that, you have to acknowledge that there's the possibility that you're going to be the one that gets got, right? So while I agree that like being pro-gun in an abstract sense or in any sort of capacity doesn't necessarily mean you yourself are asking to get shot, if you are confronted with the very real issues of gun ownership, mental illness, radicalization, and whatever that produce mass shootings, if you're confronted with that and your answer is, yeah, well, you know, that's the price that we have to pay for having guns, that's when you're asking to get shot, right? Because a reasonable person would be like, yeah, that's a really big problem. You know, we should investigate, you know, the reasons that people are going so insane that they're willing to shoot up a school in the first place, you know? I will keep exploring.
And I do disagree with Charlie Kirk. I think one gun death is one too many. I think his death was one too many.
Very convenient that he's only willing to disagree with Charlie Kirk in a way that's so brand safe that it doesn't actually indicate a political disagreement with Charlie Kirk. You can't see my mouse because I didn't click on the thing. Yeah.
I do agree with his supporters is that Charlie Kirk is a free speech martyr. He was killed for the...
Okay, I'm done with this video. This guy's not serious. Bye. Shit ass video. Imagine taking a guy like that seriously. Free speech martyr. Guy who flunked out of college and spent his entire career trying to, like, bully colleges into effectively, like, artificially boosting conservative voices. Moderates are fake news. They really are. They really are. Okay, that's definitely not going to become a segment, but that's the kind of React content I want to do. Maybe not something like that video, because it's stuff like that is so brain broken and, like, brain dead that I can't really even engage with it that much. And Charlie Kirk's death wasn't even necessarily about gun violence, right? Like, we still don't know what the motive was. The FBI is such an a non-credible entity nowadays that, like, even them posting, like, they posted fake texts, and, like, I genuinely don't believe what the FBI could potentially tell us or has told us about his about the motives of Tyler Robinson, or if he even did it, you know? Like, at this point, sure, like, they got him on camera, so I'm prepared to believe on those grounds. I'm prepared to believe, like, yeah, you know, sure, it was probably him. His family turned him in, but then you add there's some increasingly weird circumstances where his family was, like, given $1 million for turning him in or something, which is very weird. You know, usually the feds and the authorities don't give you jack shit for cooperating with them. The shooting actually still remains way more of a mystery than I would like it to be. You know, there's some kernel of truth that I think it would be really funny if it was far right on far right violence, again, like it always is. But we don't really have any information to that effect, so I'm left to kind of speculate based on what we know, which is not a whole lot. So the closest thing to an, I don't know, shrug that I can offer that's still, like, analysis of the situation is, like, I don't know, maybe he was actually just mentally ill and, like, shit posting in real life. This dungeon's theme is actually quite nice. Like, the song. The duo's level 16. Less than 1,000 to level 17. That's cool. 500, 6,600. Okay. Oop. Using the run function finally. No. Here, let me pull you guys around so you can start doing a little bit of legwork too. Thank you. It doesn't seem like there's much that way. Oops. Level 17, there we go. Well, he's getting some good stat gains at least. That's pretty good. 12th floor. Yay! Reached the destination floor. I think that's somebody. It's a rescue mission again, right? Yes, rescue Stantler. Okay. Oh, hey, it's the Graveler Rock. I'll take this opportunity to eat a gummy. And then... Oh, Energy Saver. What's that one? Hold on. Switch on non-trader. Why would I not... Why would these not be switched on? Oh, can I only have a certain number of them switched on at a time? Oh, that's frustrating. What is this one? Belly empty slower. I don't exactly need that one, but that's a good one to have. Here, let's, what's efficiency expert? Lowest HP. I can switch that one off. I don't really care about that one. I do care about non-trader. Course checker. I don't need that one because I'm currently playing as this guy. Non-sleeper. I think the game's modifiers should allow you to activate them all, make the game look insane. That's, I mean, in future installments, yeah, you can have all of these active at the same time. In Mystery Dungeon, Explorers of Time, Darkness, and Sky, the point of raising your IQ level or whatever is because each skill is another thing that buffs your character, and you're not limited to having just 4 or 5 of them. Otherwise, there'd like basically be no point to investing so much into trying to unlock more of them. You know, if you could only have, you couldn't have any more than 4. You already have 4. What's the point of unlocking more of them if you would have to drop one of the ones that you have to activate another one, you know? Trap Avoider's pretty good. Energy Saver I don't need. In fact, it kind of helps clear out my inventory with all the stuff I have. Get better skills, my guess. Yeah, but the nature of these skills is that they do different things. There's not necessarily one that's better than another one, because they have different use cases. I don't know. Self-cure. That one could be good as well. Maybe they're expecting people to have builds? Maybe. In later games, they actually did different things to facilitate a more like custom build kind of thing. In fact, I think there are other things in Pokemon that actually lend themselves well to having a build for like a Mystery Dungeon exploration team. For example, Pokemon types, Pokemon movesets, Pokemon abilities. Abilities are a thing in this game. And then I think in Super Mystery Dungeon, they have like looplets and like gems that you can find in the dungeon that are temporary buffs, but you can only have so many of them active at once. Go-getter. Here, let's see. Trap Avoider, non-sleeper, self-cure. Oh, I can't have... Okay, so that's the limit. I can only have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? I can only have 6 active. So what do I want? Non-sleeper or self-cure? Recovers faster. No, I want non-sleeper. That makes me immune entirely. Okay. Imagine in universe you force yourself to forget to remember something else. Yeah, that's... You know, maybe that's what they figured. Like, it doesn't, like, make that much sense. I don't know. Yes, I will rescue Stantler. No, I don't want to leave. Yes, continue with the adventure. There's still more of this floor to explore. Bars. Imagine picking the no option. Yeah, true. If you're... When I was... sometimes when I play other Pokemon Mystery Dungeon games, I will pick the option that just, like, gets you out of there really fast. Because, like, there are some dungeons in the later games that are, like, 50 floors long. And I'm like, I don't want to deal with 50 floors of this, but there's some juicy points from this one mission. No, I won't. Oh, the to save you. Oh, yeah, that one. Yeah, you'd have to be a psycho to be like, no, I will not, in fact, save you and send you back to civilization. That'd be fucked up. There we go. Clear the dungeon. Very good. Everyone missed, including the enemy. Yeah, that happens sometimes in this game. Even with moves that in the games have 100% accuracy. Money. Some points. I'm in it for the points. I have more than enough money right now. Alright. Looks like the dog you were just fighting? Yeah, that's because it was. Houndoom is a Pokemon that can appear in Great Canyon. Another earthquake. How many earthquakes? This would probably be like number 5. I don't know. I'm still bronze rank. Uh-oh. It's another another rumor. Oh shit. They'll just believe anyone? That's true. Republicans wish people were this gullible? They don't need to wish. People are actually this gullible. Remember I was explaining last time? People would actually just fall for this. Republicans don't need to engage in wishful thinking here. People are actually this stupid. Oh, so okay, what's going on here is that Alakazam and co. have gone missing. And so, like, they need to put together an impromptu rescue team to go, like, not to go do the thing that Alakazam's team was going to do, mind you. They're not, like, sending somebody else to their death. They're just trying to pull them out of there and just like run back to town. Wait, maybe they are going to take on Groudon, in which case you people are fucking morons. How do we know they're not doing alone time? I mean, I guess we don't. But, like, Alakazam and co. are so self-serious, I doubt they would do that. Like, paradoxically, the fact that they are, like... what's the term? Intellectually masturbatory means that they're probably not actually jonking it on the job. Alright. I'm gonna take a few more jobs, actually, and then I'm gonna go, I think, to Uproar Forest. That's where those Mankey are going pretty nuts. Let's store these apples, Graveler Rock, one of these, some of this. Actually, I'll keep the Escape Orb. And I will sell those 2 power bands. Huge apple. Interesting. I'm gonna actually buy some of these, I think. First I'll sell these power bands. Yes. Then this one as well. Now give me fuel, give me fire, give me that which I desire. Or something. Sure, I'll spend some money on these huge apples. Nope, not gonna buy anything else. There we go. Just hang on to those. The rest of that's fine. And then I think I'll actually go to Uproar Forest. It's almost like you're saying, shut up, let me take my items. Yeah, true. Bulletin board. What do I have? Silent Chasm, Lapis Caves, Frosty Forest, and Mount Freeze. Well, there's a bunch of Mount Freeze. So I'll take those. Then what else? Sped up the dialogue, put the fries in the bag meme. That's true. Take me with you. That is an escort quest, which I'm not super keen on, but I'll take it because it's rank C. Just to have it for now. I'll grab my team member. Magnetar might not even be the best choice for this because Mankey are fighting types. Well, we'll see how it works out. Summary. Level 19. I may as well. Take Oranberry. Join team. Thank you. Let's go back. Town. Take the Pecha Beer. Okay, perfect. Where's the only house you go to? I mean, this is a house. What do you mean? Only house you go. Oh, to visit Magnemite? Yeah, it's because, remember I mentioned I wanted to get my teammates each to like level 20, or like level 20 something. I think the benchmark that I'm going to use is I want to get them at least to level 21. And Magnemite is the first teammate that I recruited, so he's the first, they are the first teammate I'm going to do this for, get them to level 21, and then I will move on to bringing another teammate with me on expeditions. But right now I'm going to go to Uproar Forest. Imagine sleeping on grass. Plenty of animals do that. I mean, animals in that look in real life kind of like this do that, so not that difficult to imagine, I guess. All right, let's go to Uproar Forest. B1F. Wait, I'm going down, not up? That's kind of odd. Oh. Be fair, most animals don't have beds. That's true. What? Oh boy. This could be a doozy. Okay. Hopefully this isn't ill-advised. I'm gonna bring you into the picture here. Okay, it looks like it's just Seedot and Venonat, so if their moves are what I think they are, I'm not in, like, huge trouble, I think. Let's take out this middle guy right here, so you can't harass Magnemite too much. Let's take care of you. Okay, this shouldn't be so bad. I may have wanted to avoid using tackle there. Yeah, and that's why. That is why. Okay. Check IQ. Non-trader. Alright, great. Alright, luck. Luck of the draw. And that's why non-trader is important. If I didn't have non-trader active, I would have just done a big old chunk of damage to my teammate. Thank you, Magnemite. Wow. Also, he changed direction. That's kind of odd. Brandis, dude, screaming? Yeah. There we go. Okay, that's a little bit better. Please use your attacking moves, you... Thank you. Get out of here. Oh, you want to join the team? Sure. He's like, don't hurt me after he tried to jump you with his friends. Yeah, they tried to jump me, and then the last one's like, okay, if you can't beat him, join him. For that, I will call you Mussolini. Median voter brain, that's true. Let's take a look at his moves. I don't want you using Harden. Depending on the dungeon terrain. When that other C-Dot used nature power, it turned into Earthquake. You don't need you to get hard on the mission? Yeah, I do. It increases defense. Silly. It's also psychological warfare, which is very useful. Oh wait, there were Apom, just none of them showed up in the monster house. That is very weird. Oh. If I find a TM, I feel like I kind of want to, or even need to use it on C-Dot, because their only attacking moves are things that either require them to get hurt, or that would hurt other people on the team as well. Not a huge fan of that, to be honest. Oh, Apom also has that thing. Okay. Oh, I thought that was a path, that the trees are just a similar enough colors to the ground. Did they just spawn? What? That's crazy. Get that Venonat out of here. Oh, 2 apples. But I can only... I only have room for 1. Oh, that's okay. I can swap a Peach Berry for that. You come over here. Hopefully... 26 damage isn't nothing, but it's also, like, not a lot. How close is Magnemite to... Okay, 3,000? Part of the reason that I still am bringing Magnemite on my team is that I am not gaining a lot of experience from these Pokemon. Like, I'm really not. Oh my god. I always go up. Yep. Thank you. 3, 1, 1, 1, 1. Okay. You take 5 damage from hail? That is unreasonable. Jesus. Ugh. Oh, that hurts. I'm just gonna eat this on the spot. I'm taking the stairs as soon as I find them. I cannot recover. Look, even with 90 health, I can't out-recover the damage that the weather is doing to me. It's actually insane the difference that a couple points of damage makes if you're taking it like every few steps. Genuinely insane. Get me out of here. Okay. Normal ass weather finally. Stepped on the green gummy. Swap for one of those peach berries. Swap this for one of these heal seeds, probably? Or maybe this blast seed. I don't think I need that. One there. Okay. Why am I doing so little damage all of a sudden? I don't know. A palm? There's a weirdly large gap between, like, when I use a move and when the other Pokemon gets hit by the move in this game. It's just, like, a little bit awkward, because I'm used to it in the newer Pokemon Mystery Dungeon games. Where it's, like, much faster for there to be an indication whether the move hits or misses. So even in instances where my move is going to hit in this game, it feels like it's going to miss. Like right there. Oh, Nuzleaf. That's new. And also slightly more experience points. Okay. Apple. Swap the blowback orb for that. Well, maybe I shouldn't have done that. My food stores aren't exactly struggling right now. Ah, you cheeky man. Cheeky bugger. Oh, shit. Nice throw. There's something over here? No, there is not. Okay. Oh. Actually, I want to think. I want to think if there's any, like, discourse or anything that I can talk about. Like I mentioned, not terribly interested in news. Oh fuck. Price of electricity is rising at very uncomfortable rates. Oh yeah, that's right. Consequence of there being fucking data centers everywhere. They're outsourcing all of their power costs to the people who are being directly harmed by the introduction of more data centers into the surrounding area. I'll swap an apple for this gummy this time. Anything over here? Nope. There we go. Save palm out here. Very nice. Game Magnetar summary. Only Pokemon are giving no experience at this point in the game. In the later Pokemon Mystery Dungeon games, you'd be getting hella experience by this point. Like in the several hundreds. And by several I mean like 200 or 300. Here I am getting like 60. Or 97 in that case. But again, over time, it adds up. All the experience that you're not getting. The experience points that you're not getting. It adds up over time. To make everything just a little bit more of a slog. Then I need to... There's only 10 floors in this dungeon, right? Okay, yeah, we gotta be careful. Mankey has karate chops, so Magnetar could be in for a world of hurt. Oh. I see. Do you already run through? Yep, okay. All the uses of growth are gone. Hello, Mankey. Come on. See, I'm never sure whether the move is going to hit or not. Okay. 9th floor. Yeah, look, these Mankey are only giving 60 experience points for defeating them. Get him out of here. Oh, chestnut. That's actually important. I need to clear some space in my inventory for that. Perfect timing, I guess, for me to drink one of them. Okay. A chestnut. Oh, wait, there's got to be more to the dungeon still, right? Yeah. Okay. I started. Oh, actually, I can't believe I forget stuff that I wanted to talk about. Like, as soon as I start streaming, I forget all the stuff I want to talk about. I started reading another book. Since I got done writing the blog post for the book that I previously read, The Art of the Andes, which was about art through the pre-contact South American, like, Andean mountains. I started reading the other textbook that I have from that same college class, called The Incas. Like, that's just what it's called. Textbook is just called The Incas. I only read like a few pages of it yesterday, but it's a pretty good read, I think. Like, from what I remember, more so than Art of the Andes. Like, it's more competently written. You can tell. And the author actually, like, brought up a couple things I would love to see expanded upon. See, because of the nature of how colonial contact changed the socioeconomic landscape of the Americas, how, like, disastrous it ended up being because of the spread of disease and all that other shit. And because of the gap in historical documentation between indigenous people and colonial powers from Europe, them relying on like, written documentation, and a lot of documentation in America either not existing in the form of oral histories, or being in the form of something that is actually indecipherable to us now because it's a lost media. There is an entire set of chronicles, historical chronicles, that is completely lost media because it is recorded in Kipu. I don't know the degree to which scholars have been able to decode this, but as of 2019, which is when I was taking this class, there is historical documentation that has in some measure survived since the Tawantinsuyu, the Inca Empire. That's Quechua for the 4 parts together, because there's like 4 major regions. But we can't decipher them. We have some of the historical documentation that the Incas wrote, quote unquote, wrote down, but it's in Kipu, and it's indecipherable to us. Because of the forced assimilation policies of the Spaniards, of the Spanish Empire, the Quipus are now completely unknown to us. We don't know what they say anymore. Okay. These are just regular ass Mankey. Alright, so much for me worrying about bringing Magnemite along, as there's no fucking concern to be had at all. No, Mudkip is... Mudkip, you sly dog. Oh, they're sleepy. They're sleepy. Yeah, let's do that. Don't be a fucking like cheapskate. Mudkip, you give them their fucking chestnuts, the payment, dude. I have a chestnut in my inventory, right? Yeah, I do. Here. Yeah, here you go. And so? Okay, so I think I gotta do that a couple more times. Check the mail. Mount Steel, Great Canyon, Mount Freeze. Mount Freeze! Okay. Good, good, good. Alright, no more Silent Chasm, I think. Give me that Mount Freeze job. Great Canyon. Here, let's, I think I have to go... Yeah, I have to go to Uproar Forest to get those chestnuts. So I think I'm going to have to do that instead of doing jobs on the bulletin board. I'm going to put away some of these gummies, too. I'll put away all except for 4 of them. Or maybe 5. No, hold on. Here we go. Yeah, I'll keep 5 of those gummies. Then... I think I have a max elixir in storage, don't I? Yeah, I have a few. Give me those, thank you. Or give me one of them, rather. No friend areas. I'll just put back some money. 6,542. That's a lot of money. I'll look at the job bulletin board at least. That's Steel, not Blaze. Okay, nothing super interesting. Don't have any money. Not super interested in what they have anyways. Let's go get Magnemite, and then I'll go back to Uproar Forest. Take the Pecha Berry. Join the team. Oh, that was fast. Holy shit. I didn't realize you could just press B like that. Take the apple. Okay. Got a couple excess items. That's not a huge deal. I can just swap those out in the dungeons. Let me get the book. I want to share the thing that I found very interesting. I started on this, but I grabbed the other book too by accident. I started on this by mentioning how scarce documentation was from back in the day, how hard it is to like, how it's kind of hard to find surviving literary material that can like easily be interpreted. So I think I wrote, and I've decided to take some notes on the margins. You can see I'm writing all over there. There's one part that I found real interesting from this book. I'll save the state because I think I just saved the game earlier. Yeah, depending on the author, this is a book written by Terence Daltroy. Shout outs to that guy, I guess. Cool, archaeologist, historian, I suppose. Depending on the author, Tawantinsuyu, which is the Inca name for the Inca, empire, has been held up as an exemplar of almost every form of political society except representative democracy. The Inca Garcilaso de la Vega, 1966, son of an Inca princess, immortalized... Oh wait, he's citing something from 1966. Might be. Immortalized Tawantinsuyu in 1609 as a supremely well-run homogeneous monarchy ruled by an omnipotent and benevolent king. So, like, the typical sort of propagandizing glorious realm led by the glorious leader, we are all one people sort of thing, right? Although he was writing to exalt the glories of his ancestors to a Spanish audience, Garcilaso's vision is still popular today. Like, that narrative kind of percolates to today for how a lot of people see the Inca Empire, the Tawantinsuyu, what they think of. His efforts aside, other commentators have seen the realm in radically different lights. As a type of primitive communism, a feudal society, a despotic Asiatic state, and a territorial empire. Some modern scholars even doubt that an empire existed and instead see a patchwork of ethnic groups that were never truly unified. I find that really interesting. That we know that there's such a there's such an intense debate in academia about what was the real, political character of the empire ruled over by the Incas, if there even was an empire, Thank you, Mudkip. Very useful. Can you... Alright. Me personally, I hope, I don't know if this is necessarily the case, but I hope that Daltroy, the author, lays out some of the details of what these visions of the Inca Empire were, more details about how these academics construct the arguments of, oh, the Incas were primitive, it was primitive communism, oh, it was a feudal society, oh, it was a despotic oriental state, oh, it was a territorial empire, oh, it was, not even really a coherent state at all, but just a disparate smattering of ethnic groups, with, a couple of more or less important cities that at various different times had various claim to fames and whatever, and wanted to be like the head guy, In fact, I made a little note here that the interpretations that I lean more towards are the feudal society based on some sort of family power structure, like feudal nobility with a royal family and stuff. Vaguely sort of trying to gesture at an imperial objective or imperial ambitions, sort of trying to rhetorically impose that over a landscape where that doesn't really exist, and you just have a bunch of ethnic groups that are sort of loosely connected through various trade networks that connect cities up and down the west coast of South America. You know, that's from what I've read, from what I remember learning about the Incas, the Tawantinsuyu, which is the name that they gave to their empire, the Wari and the Tiwanaku, all the people that came before them. That's kind of what I lean towards. A mix of feudal society, imperial family power, but an empire so loose that it's hard to really call it an empire that like you would recognize in the modern sense. And really, it's just cities are in contact with each other, but then there's the one guy who lives several cities over that thinks he's all that with a bag of chips, and he's like comes walking through with his royal guards. Are you talking about U.S. Empire? No, I'm talking about the Incas, who called their empire Tawantinsuyu, or which is Quechua for the four parts united. My bad. That's all good. I honestly like, even though there's some version of that you could apply to American the American empire. I think that the size of the state in the age of American empire, which indeed includes the size of the American state, absolutely dwarfs the size of the state in Tawantinsuyu in the 15th and 16th centuries. You know, the state has grown so much larger over the course of basically just the 20th century. You know, like the historical and political development of the 19th and 20th century was the historical political development of the state under the various statist ideologies of alternatively imperial monarchism, social democracy, or, classical fascism, or post-war social democracy, or any number of different, political coalitions. Yeah. And from early establishing facts that are being laid out here, the Tawantinsuyu is very similar to, insofar as benchmarks of socioeconomic development and rhetorically recognizable features of a very hierarchical politics. It's very recognizable when you compare it to European states, its European contemporaries, especially with stuff like the divine right of kings, the integration of a particular, not just one ruler, but like a dynasty into the ruling religious ideology, and the cynical character of religion insofar as establishing what little state power exists. This gets laid out much more plainly, and paradoxically, there's more social memory of this with empires in the pre-contact Americas, but royal families would often incorporate themselves into the origin and founding myth of their society. It's kind of part and parcel to the divine right of kings, claims of being descended from a great prophet, it's like any sort of ruler claiming some sort of relationship with Jesus, which happened often enough in the Middle Ages. Not necessarily through direct family ties, but I mean, you literally had the Pope claiming to be the voice of God, as close as you could get to being God on earth. There are a lot of similarities, and I think the fact that these similarities are visible through such visually striking differences makes it that much more interesting to me. So that's the book I'm reading presently. Flax seed and an apple. I don't really need either of those. I could just keep going. I need to find chestnuts. That's what I need. Get out of here, Venonat. I'll be having that. There's nothing over there. Wait, there's got to be something there. Ow. No, I selected the wrong move. There we go. Okay. That's the hallway I was looking for. Daniel Immerwahr at Northwestern used the term pointillist empire to describe U.S. empire. Takes into account the bases and points of strategic intimidation and control. Very interesting seeing empire shift in this non-territorial version if we exclude our small territories all over the world. Yeah, it is fascinating that, like, empire changed so drastically, because for the longest time, empire was something that historians would have a relatively easy time drawing on a map. You know, like, your sphere of influence with, like, Rome or with the Persian Empire, you can draw a line. It's not going to be a great line, but you can draw a line at roughly where that ends, and that gives you an idea of the shape of the empire, right? Geographically speaking. But with the United States, the character of American empire in the 20th century was defined by military presence. You know, the Marshall Plan. There was some developing globalization of the economy, but it was very deeply integrated with the military-industrial complex, which meant military bases. So military bases were an indication of, like, the presence of American influence, but not necessarily the presence of American territory, except for the base itself, you know? And so, you know, the bases indicated, okay, America has some sort of presence here in a way that's kind of hard to draw on a map. Sure, you get the points, right? I guess that's the point of pointillist empire. But, you know, for the size of the nation of the United States, it's still confined to its possessions in, like, the 50 states and what limited territories it directly controls as part of its own government. And even that is something that was mostly in that's like 48 states are the logo map. Yeah. Yeah, and like, even with, I know that there's some academics that still refer to the sheer number of American military bases around the world, and I think that's even, like, it's almost becoming a vestige of what American empire looks like, especially now that American empire is decaying. We're seeing, like, the post-prime American empire was much more than military bases, characterized by military partnerships with other governments and trade relationships and economic influence. Stuff that you couldn't even really measure that well if you just pointed to military bases. You might be able to get a vibe where certainly we would have business agreements with the countries where we have military bases, but we also have a lot of influence and a lot of trade dealings, and thus a lot of presence of empire in countries where there aren't military bases. And there is some degree of autonomy, depending on how deep our relationship is, with countries that do have military bases of ours. We had sweatshops in the northern Marinas, and we mistreat our Commonwealth. Yeah, I know. What I'm describing is how the visual, like, how the nature of imperial politics for the United States has changed even just from the 20th century up until now. Nowadays, it is actually much more characterized by the presence of sweatshops, exploitation done by American companies outsourced to the private sector that is really, really difficult to draw on a map, even more so than saying there's a military base here. I mean, shit, there are sweatshops in the lower 48. Yeah, USA, USA. USA #1 at exploiting resources. One of the issues actually becomes that because this is relevant to the presence of sweatshops both abroad and domestically. Part of the development of liberal capitalism is very wrapped up in colonial projects. With sweatshops overseas being much more profitable, or sweatshops domestically being much more profitable than like above board, on the books sort of employment where people are paid a wage. Even though that's exploitative, it's not exploitative enough to see the kind of growth that business wants to see quarter over quarter, year over year, right? So markets have to expand, and things just generally, economies have to expand to find more places to extract resources from. But the world, in terms of like economic material, and in terms of productivity, in terms of resources and people, is finite. It's limited, right? And the production cycle of exploiting resources, or extracting resources and whatever, relies on there being a core to enjoy the use and exploitation of those resources, and a periphery for those resources to be taken from, basically. First world, third world, whatever. The issue, like, not only is that morally bad, obviously, I think people can recognize, exploitation is bad and cringe. It becomes much more difficult to sustain that as the core grows bigger and bigger and bigger, and there's comparatively less room for you to extract out of a shrinking periphery, if that makes sense. It's almost like the fusion of a star, where it's starting to blow through the fuel in its core, and the core has to expand because it's using different fuel, and then like it starts oscillating much more rapidly, if that makes sense. I'm having a hard time putting this into words. I was thinking the other day, the USA is going supernova. Yeah, it's like you can only do the same cycle so many times. Oh yeah, here it is. Here's what I'm thinking of. If you expand the businesses of the core to so many places, eventually you actually run out of periphery to extract from. I think that's what I'm generally getting at. The core demands more and more and more production. And when I say the core, I don't mean the American population. The American population is incidentally close enough to the core to benefit from that stuff. The real core of the core is like business interests, and those business interests constantly need more to be extracted from the periphery, more to be produced, more profit to be made, but you can't do that forever. That's not a huge deal. I thought that was going to be way bigger of a deal than it was. The, you know, using Earthquake as a product of having nature power or whatever. Is there anything over here? There sure isn't. Please let there be chestnuts on this floor. Or the next floor, that'd be nice. But yeah, like I was saying about that book, I would actually be really interested to see the arguments laid out for like why certain academics would argue the Tawantinsuyu to be the more reminiscent of one political system or another. Because I have my own opinions on it, but I don't know, that kind of stuff is always just very fascinating to me. You know? And some of them being so contradictory interests me more because, like, I think I can actually even see where they're coming from with both sides of those contradictory images of what that imperial landscape looked like. You know, like primitive communism and a territorial empire with feudal family power are all, like, opposed to one another, you know? But I can see the arguments for, like, all of those. I don't know. Here I am getting intellectually horny for history. Hopefully 2 chestnuts is enough to finish the base. I don't have a horny command yet. That would be really funny if I had like a bonk. I should add that. I should add like a go to horny jail bonk kind of thing when you type exclamation point horny. Developer. Squeaker, what are you doing over there? My cat's looking out the window. She cannot get enough of that window now that the AC unit is gone for the season. Yes. You name your cat Tweaker. No, her name is Squeaker, and we didn't name her that. We adopted her when she was very young. Her name is Squeaker. She had a brother, but he died when they were still young. And so now she's our only cat. I had another cat at the time too, but after a few years of having Squeaker, I think she passed away as well. So now it's just Squeaker. Oh, it was just the one. Okay. Yeah, hi. Hi. Mankey goes and breaks shit. Highly recommend Immerwar's How to Hide an Empire, by the way. It's really well written. I think I might actually know what the subject matter is, but alright, sure. History of the Greater United States. Yeah, that seems like hi Squeaker. That seems like what I was talking about, where the U.S. built up empire by way of trade deals and economic influence that it was able to take advantage of to like build itself up as well. Yeah. What is it, Squeaker? Anyways, I'm gonna store some items and then I'm going to use extra. Gengar quoted as saying, that's great. I like that. You know, honestly, Pelipper's a real one for including how like the Alakazam's team was like, oh haha, just kidding. I believed it from the start. They just include the direct quote so you know that like they're full of shit. Thank you, Pelipper. Very cool. The most fantastical thing about the Pokemon world is that in this world, the media is not in fact the enemy of the people. Hang on a minute. Pointillist empire as a term made me goon for a second. Something I've felt. But having a term people are starting to use. Whoa. Pikachu says fake news. That's true. So true, bestie. I will store a bunch of things. Again, I'll keep 5 gummies. I just keep finding gummies faster than I can, like, use them. It's kind of crazy. Pikachu's the petit bourgeois in the Pokemon world. That's facts. His face is everywhere. He's the, like, everybody who knows about Pokemon knows about Pikachu. He's not the strongest Pokemon, but definitely a class trader. Yeah. Oh, wait, hold on. New friend areas? No. No friend areas. If there's jobs on Mount Freeze, I might just snipe them all. Snipe them all. One facade TM wanted. But I want the facade TM. I want it for me. You can't have it. Okay. I'm gonna assume that there's gonna be one on the way. So I'm gonna... Yeah, I'll get rid of the one on Mount Thunder. And take this one on Mount Freeze. then I'll get my team ready for the expedition. And then I'll save and end stream, because it's been a couple of hours. Store that Oranberry. Oh, I need another max elixir. That's what I need. Then actually I could probably do with storing... Were you a ContraPoints truther? What do you mean by that? ContraPoints truther? I'm almost afraid to ask, but I need to know. Like a fan? No, not really. I watched a couple of her videos, but it was really weird where, like, when she made... Didn't she make, like, a whole video about... No, she didn't make a whole video about Vosh. But there was a video that just seemed like a very weirdly long portion of it was about Vosh. And I was like, okay, I don't think I care too much for that. And then, of course, she came out and started being, like, performatively anti-Israel. She, like, started lambasting the pro-Palestine left. And I was like, what is she cooking? Nobody knows. And I don't really care about her stuff that much anymore. Yeah, you know, the moment she was like, let me make Palestine about me, I'm just kind of like, okay, well. Yeah. She'll emerge once a year to get involved in the most giant Twitter drama of all time, and then never be heard of again until the next giantest Twitter drama of all time. That's, like, about politics. Summary, level 20. Alright, so... Join the team. We're on a long-ass, well-researched and contrast video once a year, too. But she was a lib and increasingly became so. Yeah, the more lib she became, the less interested I was in her stuff. Because it seemed like very... It seemed very, very much... like, increasingly surface level and increasingly missing a systemic point that was underlying the subject, if that makes sense. You know? Like with the essay about J.K. Rowling, she wasn't really anti-revolutionary, she mostly focused on culture. No, yeah, I know that. I mean, like, with there were certain, the example I'm thinking of is, like, with the J.K. Rowling video, where she, like, concluded, she was like, what do we do about J.K. Rowling and the TERF movement? Like, this new, you know, particularly, like, of growing prominence on social media, block of TERFs that seems to be consolidating more with conservatives. They seem to have some of the same underpinning, like, opinions and stuff, you know, and it seemed like it was all there to say, like, we need to treat these people as our ideological opponents because they are just conservatives who are masquerading as feminists. Or rather, they are the wedge of feminists that have been peeled off by conservatives and are no longer distinguishable from them. But then she said, let's just all block J.K. Rowling. And I was like, really? You know? Like, there's a new... what has been labeled by the UN as an anti-rights movement that has been increasingly integrated into the ranks of the far right, especially in English-speaking countries outside of the US, you know, thinking of Australia, the UK, New Zealand. The TERFs had been a pretty big fixture in their politics and are, like, gaining prominence and stuff like that. And that's all she had to offer on the subject. Not saying she should have the solution to the problem. I'm saying she should have, like, a little bit better analysis than just, let's block J.K. Rowling. Like, sure, block J.K. Rowling, but that's not like a political analysis point. That's not a conclusion to this political analysis that's setting up. We need to rhetorically treat TERFs as if they're just conservatives, because they are. And also the fact that she behaved as though J.K. Rowling was just still a confused, well-meaning liberal who needed to be pulled out of the vortex before it was too late. No, she's a full-on fascist. You know, you missed that one by a couple of years. You know? I don't know. I'm not super concerned with whether she's like pro the revolution or not or whatever. You know, it was just there were some big failures of analysis that I was like, that's really uncharacteristic. You're focusing on a sentence? I know I am, because that sentence is the conclusion to her entire body of analysis. She put on an hour and a half of dissecting TERFs. Yeah, and that's why that sentence, which was the beginning of the conclusion section, where she proceeded to try to justify that at length, was kind of like it for me. I mean, look, I don't have a social relationship with ContraPoints or anything like that. It's purely a parasocial, like they are a YouTuber, or they were, I guess. I don't know. They don't post anymore. And I watched their videos whenever they would post one, you know, every fucking 6 months. You know, and throughout the whole thing, I was interested to hear about the what was it, the Save the Children kind of moral majority movement in the United States, how women were the face of fascism in a way that sort of whinged and whined about the concerns of women, and sort of used the mask of feminism to divide marginalized communities to try to gain ground for the far right. Really good analysis, with a bizarrely out of place conclusion. And I mean, I watched it and I was like, that was good, well researched, but it was weird to have a conclusion that out of place and that like myopic and personal for a political subject. You know, there's like the personal, which is like one person, that's the level at which like maybe drama or beef exists. And then you have politics, which is analyzing the movements of various different communities, power structures, interest groups, capital, that sort of stuff. Stop giving her so much benefit of the doubt with her conspiracy video. She got real radlib preaching that she had an amazing video on the rhetoric of daddy politics. She ended with hating the left and calling us misogynistic for not liking mommy politics. Great analysis and diagnosing social issues, but her conclusions are very soapbox. Yeah, I think that's probably, like, I haven't seen those videos, I don't think. Anything beyond the J.K. Rowling video, I think I haven't seen from ContraPoints. But that seems correct to say. Right? Like, it didn't seem like her ability to do research has deteriorated at all. Increasingly Libyan anti-left. Yeah. I don't know. That's what I thought about that. But yeah, you know, like I said, it wasn't some like the thing that made me start having a problem with her as a person, kind of like, you know, where it's like, okay, now I'm kind of skeptical of like your you know, personality as you're posting all this, whatever, was just like her making the Palestine discussion about her. I was like, that's weird from an interpersonal perspective, but she is/was a content creator, and I watched her content, and there was something in her content that I just really didn't like and really didn't sit well with me, so I stopped watching, and that was basically it. She never brought up imperialism ever. Average social democrat behavior. Seriously, a lot of social democrats are kind of on that train. Not to like, not trying to say that as like the Leninist virtue signal if you have to constantly be talking about imperialism, whatever. But it's almost like you know, there's a failure to recognize that a set of relationships such as that could exist, or like they can't exactly see it, or something like that. I don't know. Rosa Luxemburg, unironically, could articulate the critiques of social democrats way better than I could, where they are interested in the development of capitalism in ways that make the world better, but ultimately, because they are still okay with the same property relationships, the same fundamental rules persisting, they're ultimately okay with a lot of the things that capitalism does that are quite exploitative. For example, having private entities that are capable of owning certain resources in a way that enables the old colonial powers to perpetuate their sort of dominion over former colonial subjects into the modern day. They're not as good at recognizing that. But there's one person, before I end the stream, there's actually one person that I want to shout out who made like has had like a political journey that's actually incredibly difficult to reach at, that like most people could not, which is Econoboy. I don't know if you remember, but Econoboy was like this nerd, kind of nerd in parentheses endearing neoliberal social democrat who was all about the graphs, all about the charts, and all about the policy wonkery. But I had seen a couple of debates that were with them. I'd seen like some of the arguments they had with people who were to the left of them, and it was like they couldn't really see the arguments. They didn't really get or agree with the arguments, or maybe they, maybe they just didn't agree with the arguments about these broader systems, irrespective of like what kind of guardrails you can put in place with regulating larger businesses, that there's a fundamental relationship that businesses have to resources, that businesses have to people, how there's like such an impersonal and alienating relationship there that is actually long-term very unhealthy for an economy. And I think I remember distinctly a couple months ago seeing that Econoboy was like, you know what, fuck it. I kind of see what's going on now. Like, legitimately, I feel like we're starting to reach the limit of capitalism. There's some fundamental rules and barriers that need to go. If that makes sense. It's a very hard ideological bridge to make, Anyways, I got a ton of respect for that guy because he's probably read a million times more studies than I ever have. But now I'm gonna raid somebody. My characters have just been standing at the bed for like the past 10 minutes. I don't know. Look, my memory isn't the greatest. I have a hard time remembering like what exactly Econoboy said. Like what was the issue that sort of convinced him? Maybe, you know what? I think maybe it was housing. It was something like that. It was housing or something that had convinced Econoboy like, fuck it. You actually can't fix this within the bounds of like free market capitalism, even with social democracy coming in to save the day with like UBI and trade unions. Anyways, I'm gonna rate Hassan. Get that solicitation shit out of here. See y'all next time.